now available in paperback and e-readers. Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door takes on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess featuring a bonus pin-up and the other 2 books in the Cyber Goddess saga at online bookstores everywhere today. Recently, Marvel Studios boss Kevin Feige came out and admitted a comic book's popularity doesn't matter for the MCU. And your Kevin Feige probably believes that with the success of movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, where they took an obscure group of heroes and turned them into household names, he can go out here and do this with other characters. And this is where I believe your Kevin Feige is about to make a very big mistake that his predecessors, the Salkins and your Joel Schumacher, made back in the respective decades of the 80s with Superman 3 and what Joel Schumacher made with when he started making Batman movies when he took over from Tim Burton. And he believes that he can go out here and make a comic book concept popular by presenting it to the audience on screen, but that's again where I believe he's made a very big mistake, because I believe that this is going to be the beginning of the end as related to him, because this mistake that he's making, thinking that he can go and make a comic book more popular with the MCU, may be the thing that winds up undoing him, similar to what happened with Kathleen Kennedy and the whole Star Wars franchise. Now, your Kevin Feige is probably thinking that he can go out here and again make a franchise popular, like Blade was made popular because of Wesley Snipes, or Guardians of the Galaxy that became popular due to the Infinity Saga and its connections to other popular MCU movies. But I believe that his whole theory is going to fall apart when it comes down to Phase 4, and I believe it's going to fall apart with Phase 4 because he's so filled with hubris. He's thinking that he can make these comic book characters continue to remain popular, even though many of these concepts really have not had a strong foundation with a large audience of comic fans. Now, what made, I believe, the MCU very popular was the fact that we got really strong execution of these comics, and they remained true to the source material. And I believe what made the MCU very popular was the fact that Iron Man, when it came out in 2008, was very true to the source material and basically felt like a comic book coming to life on screen. And that movie's momentum built into The Incredible Hulk, into Thor, and to Captain America the First Avenger. All 4 of those movies built up into the payoff, which was Avengers, and we got to see all of these heroes staying very true to who they were in the comics and practically coming to life. And even though these were B and C list characters, it was about how authentic these characters were and how true they were to the source material. That was the thing that motivated many people to continue watching MCU movies and made these characters popular with a generation of young fans. Now, with the Infinity Saga completely completed, a lot of fans have walked away from the MCU, and I don't think they'll be back for Phase 4. And the reason why I don't believe they'll be back for Phase 4 is because your Kevin Feige is going to start deviating from the source material, and we started to see that with Spider-Man Homecoming, because Spider-Man Homecoming was nothing like any Spider-Man comic I ever read. The Raimi movies were actually just like a Spider-Man comic book come to life, but this is where your Kevin Feige started to deviate from the source material, and that's where while this film made a lot of money, it just stopped staying true to the heart of the material. And that was the same mistake that Joel Schumacher made back in '95 with Batman Forever, because after he took over for Tim Burton, your Joel Schumacher decided to go in a different direction. Instead of keeping it dark and gritty, he decided to go with light and lively, similar to the 1966 Batman TV show, and put up a whole lot of camp and humor into the Batman Forever movie, and then carried that over into Batman and Robin, and that alienated a lot of Batman fans and led to them practically destroying the whole Batman franchise at the whole Batman and Robin point. And I believe the same thing is going to happen with Marvel Studios and the MCU, because when you go out here and say, oh, a comic book's popularity doesn't matter to the MCU, then you're going to go out here and launch film concepts that may not really catch on with viewers. And I believe that Marvel Studios may be in for a rude awakening with this Eternals movie, because Eternals was never really that strong as related to being a comic, and it never really caught on with comic fans. So if you don't have comic fans coming in who are excited about the material, then you're going to wind up losing box office on opening day. Because if this is some super obscure character that only a handful of people are excited for, then it's going to be hard to get those people to get enthusiastic about going out here and pay tickets for them. Because while you might say Iron Man was a B-list character, he was strong enough to carry his own cartoon in the 90s. He was strong enough to carry an action figure line for at least 3 to 4 waves in the 90s, and he was able to be one of the most popular Marvel Legend action figures in that line of super articulated action figures. So there was an audience for the Iron Man character, but it's going to be hard for there to be an audience for a group of characters like the Eternals or a character like Shang-Chi. I mean, it's going to be a tough sell to get these Phase 4 characters pushed at the box office, and that's something your Kevin Feige, I think, isn't really thinking about, because he's more focused on saying, I'm going to go out here and make the characters into popular franchises, not looking at the readership, because if you don't look at the readership, you don't have a core base in order to go out here and sell said characters, and you need to have a base of fans in order to go out here and sell comic book movies. Because if that base is not there to galvanize, then you're not going to have a group to build the momentum. You don't have a core audience to build the momentum to get the casuals excited. So I'm really thinking that your Kevin Feige is really not thinking critically about things, because if he thinks you're going to be able to push a character like Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, who has failed in the recent Avengers video game and has not really sold well in comics, only has like 8,000 orders and probably 4,000 sales. I mean, if you're going to pour $100 million into this character in a movie like The Marvels, you may be sitting on another bomb, because the audience really is not, they don't know this character, and even worse, you haven't given the core base a reason to care. Because it's like I've said in numerous videos about screenwriting, the question you have to answer is, why should we care? And it's hard to care about a lot of these Phase 4 characters, because they really don't have a good core foundation as related to an audience. And the whole thing is that you're sitting there with all of these characters who really don't have a strong enough audience, and you're thinking, oh, I can just make them popular because I don't have a comic book base. And you don't need comic book bases. That's a real big mistake, as I see it, because I've seen this mistake played out twice before. I remember in '83 seeing it played out with Superman 3, where the Salkins decided, oh, we're not going to stick to the model for Superman, which is truth, justice, in the American way. We're not going to have Superman take on Brainiac or one of his rogues. No, we're going to make a movie with Richard Pryor and a lot of comedy, and they may end up making one of the worst movies in the whole Superman franchise that practically led to the decline of the whole Superman franchise. And then you had Joel Schumacher, who stepped in and decided he wanted to go in a different, more humorous direction with the Batman franchise, and decided, after he got away with Batman Forever, to go and ratchet up the humor in Batman and Robin. And that led to the whole complete collapse of the whole Batman franchise. And I believe the same thing will happen with the MCU, because the MCU is not infallible at this point. It's at a vulnerable point, as I see it, because with the Infinity Saga completed and your Tony Stark dead and the Hulk maimed and Thor practically out of the game and Captain America an old man, it doesn't really give most of the old school comic fans an incentive to come back, and it doesn't give them a reason to care because the story they wanted to see is over, and now that the story they want to see is over, they don't really have much invested into a Phase 4, and that's why I believe your Phase 4 might possibly be a fail for Disney and Marvel Studios, because they're out here trying to go out here thinking that, like Joel Schumacher and the Salkins before them, they don't have to deal with the source material, the popularity of the source material, and that the popularity of the source material doesn't matter, and that they don't need comic books anymore. But if you think like that, you're going to go out here and not really know what the audience wants or what the audience cares about. And if you don't know what the audience wants or cares about, then what's going to happen is you're going to go out here and make a movie that's going to bomb. And I believe that Marvel Studios may be in for its first flop with the Eternals and may be in for a string of flops sooner rather than later. And they really, again, as I see it, need to really rethink things as related to what they're doing, because you do need comics and you do need a core base of customers in order to sell comic book movies to readers. Because if you don't have readers who don't know about the character, they can't spread the word of mouth about that character. And if they can't spread the word of mouth about that character, then other people can't really answer the question, why should I care, or why should I be interested to go see this movie? Because if I'm hearing other people chat about this movie, then other people are going to want to go see this movie. And this is something Kevin Feige really isn't thinking about, because I believe he's too cocky and too full of himself as related to the success of the MCU so far, and he really is taking that success for granted. And because he's taking that success for granted, he really cannot see where he's going and what he's in the brick wall he's headed for. Now, if you want to see me make more videos about superheroes, comics, science fiction, and fantasy, you can donate to the Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App. And if you want to pick up my first comic, Eastern No Good Deed, you can find it on Amazon.com for 99 cents. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct fantasy titles like the ISIS series, the Eastern series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, the Thetas, or A Recipe for Success, you can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Taking Care of Business. The man who rules the world breaks in a brand new partner to help him take care of business in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Taking Care of Business at paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.